Good.
Okay, there you go. So let's get this back up. How do you full screen again?
The top left, right, like full screen. Yeah.
There you go. Okay, perfect.
Okay.
So before we begin, I just want to check. How do you do this? Oh, there you go. I just want to check what kind of experience people have. So, is everyone here familiar with using CSS selectors? Perfect. And in terms of Python experience, anyone with experience working with classes in Python? Okay, great. So there will be audience participation for this. And I'm going to follow the dead bridge rules, which means the first two rules are immune, so you four people, good luck. So, in my experience at any of these talks, the person giving the talk first has to introduce themselves, so you guys know that the person isn't full of shit. So, my name is Roy Healy. I'm a HSTEP, currently studying in UCC, I'm doing a HSTEP in computing technology. And I'm also a part-time Python developer at a company called Scraping Hub. Scraping Hub make the Scrapy package that I'll be talking about for web scraping. I just realized I've got one thing missing here. Usually in these slides, the speaker has to put a really out-of-date photo of themselves. So let me just get that up. There. That's a photo of me when I made my first spider. So now without the unpleasantness behind us, let's actually talk about the agenda for the evening. First, I'm going to talk a bit about what exactly web scraping is. Then I'm going to talk a bit about what Scrapy is, the package I use for web scraping. I'm going to go a bit into the architecture of Scrapy. And then we'll have a live demo where together we're going to make a spider to scrape part of the UCC Express website. Once that's done, I'm going to talk about some things you should keep in mind when you're doing your own web scraping. I'm going to talk about some kind of advanced techniques you might have to do for more complex websites. I'm going to talk a little bit about anti-bots. And then I'm going to end talking about Scraping Hub, the company I work for. So to start with, what exactly is web scraping? Web scraping is using automated scripts to visit web pages. We have some vocabulary connected to this. We'll call the automated scripts, we'll call them spiders. And the spiders will crawl the web. It's all very spooky. So the kind of stuff we'd be using with these spiders is we would use it mainly to extract data. So does anyone have any ideas what kind of data we'd be extracting from websites?
Like prices?
Yep, that's one. So a common thing would be looking at online stores and seeing what prices things are. So if let's say you're making your own online store, you want to see what other people are pricing their products for, you might conduct a web scraper to spy on your competitors. Any other ideas?
Emails?
Yep, emails is a very important one. I regret to say that one time I had to do that. I had to scrape a website looking for contact information for wineries in the US because a marketing firm wanted us to get contact information so they could spam them, their fancy new fertilizer made especially for grapes. A couple of things that you might not realize use web scraping for is indexing pages. So this is how Google knows how to rate things in your search results. They use spiders to crawl websites and take data from them and use a crazy magic algorithm to figure out how to rank them. This is like a very important part of modern internet. For example, a few weeks ago, Patreon fucked up when they were updating their website. They accidentally put some code in to tell bots to not scrape any pages on their domain. This code was there for about 4 hours, and Patreon's entire Google index rank just crashed immediately. They reckon it'll be like 2 or 3 more weeks until users on Patreon have the pages actually appearing again. So indexing it's done. It's happening all the time, and even a small break in your indexing can really ruin your website's visibility. And lastly, a common thing it's used for is archiving. There's a company, there's an organization called, I think it's the Internet Archive, and their goal is to archive the entire internet. and they have an application called the Wayback Machine, and you can go onto the Wayback Machine and put in any URL, and it'll show you what that URL looked like, like a few hours ago, a few days ago, a few weeks ago, a few years ago. So this allows us to have a record of what the internet was like. So even when you make your first website with its horrible HTML, there's a chance that the Wayback Machine has a copy of that, and you will never be free of that shame. So now we'll talk a bit more about what exactly Scrapey is. So Scrapey is an open source Python package for web scraping. And what it does is it offers a web scraping framework. What exactly do I mean by a framework? Well, it's going to add in a bunch of features and bells and whistles that allow you that'll automate some of the more tedious parts of web scraping and let you focus on just parsing the web pages. So one thing it offers is it can parse HTML responses via CSS and XPath. So that's why I was asking about CSS selectors at the start. What I'll be doing is we'll be using CSS selectors to actually select elements in the web page and take the data from those elements. It also handles scheduling and queuing of requests. So if, let's say, I want to scrape 100 pages, and some of those pages are taking really long to load, instead of having my entire spider stop until that's done, it will schedule them and it'll queue them up, and it will be able to request the pages asynchronously using an asynchronous method. And this combines a pipeline to increase the efficiency of a spider. So sometimes to visit one page at a time, you're going to be visiting a couple of pages at a time, and that's to be fed into your program, and your CSS and XPath responses are going to allow you to pass that easily. To give you kind of an example of what this offers over not using something like this, back before I was a Python developer at Scraping Club, I was an analyst at Blizzard. And one thing I had to do, I won't go into details why I was doing this, just to save time after talking to Ashley about it, but as part of my job as an analyst, I had to get all of these crest names from MongoDB. And what I had to do, and this was before I knew Scrapey or any of the clever ways to do this, I ended up just using requests to go and visit the page source, this big mass of horrible text, and I used regular expressions and string splitting and all that good stuff to actually pull the stuff out, and it was a massive pain in the ass. You'll see now when we're doing this later on that it's much easier to pull the data you need because of the framework that powers Scrapey. So now I'm going to talk a bit more about the Scrapey architecture. For this, I've decided to channel my inner Professor John Morrison. I also going to say to anyone watching the video, I apologize because I'm going to be going over there now, and chances are the audio will be picked up. So the next couple of minutes is going to be completely silent. So, so this looks really complicated, but the main thing, because we're using a framework, is we actually don't really need to know what all this stuff is doing. We just need to know this part here. So this is the spiders. This is what you're actually making. So all this is working on the hood for you. For the most part, you're writing code in here, and this stuff is doing everything for you. But I'll still go over kind of what it's doing to save a general idea of what's actually happening. You start off, you write a spider, and the spider's going to send some requests. This is basically the URLs you want to visit. And these get sent into the engine, and the engine's going to grab those requests and put them to the scheduler down here. And what the scheduler is going to do is it's going to keep an eye on how many requests are currently ongoing, because you don't want to be sending too many requests out at once. You might accidentally DDoS someone, that's very impolite. So you're going to, the scheduler's going to keep an eye and see what's coming out from the downloader, and once there's a free slot, it's going to push back into the engine, and then it's going to push it over here into the downloader. And all the downloader does is it sends the HTTP request up into the internet and gets the HTML text to the website. It doesn't get like the JavaScript or the images or the CSS files or all that stuff. It just gets the plain HTML text. So once it gets that goes back here through into the engine. The engine sees, oh, this is a response, and it shoots it up here into the spider. And in the spider, you're going to have the code to actually parse the website. So that's where you have the CSS selectors. You'll be pulling the data from the website. And once it has, out of the spider, two things are going to come. Either items, which are basically just, think of them as like rows in a database. This is the data you're trying to get from the website. Or it'll be sending more requests. Like let's say, if you find this page needs some more pages you want to scrape, or if let's say you want to download, instead of having a link to an image, you want to download the image, stuff like that, these requests will come out and go again through the cycle. A couple of optional parts of it. First of all, here in the item pipelines, this is what happens to your items when they're done being scraped. They got pushed here into a pipeline. And this pipeline could be something as simple as write what you find to a file. It could be something as complex as take what you're writing and push it to a web server somewhere. You can write to an SQL database or just push a file to an Amazon server or cloud server, something like that. Then these parts here, that these are ones that tag as middlewares. These are extensions that allow you to add additional features to your spider. So for example here, with the downloader, I'm going to have some middleware here. A common one I'll have is a retry middleware. And what this does is, if it's, so here I have a redirect middleware. So if let's say the downloader comes back and says, hey, I got a 301 status. What's a 301 status mean? Andrew?
Oh yeah, no, it's the request was incomplete and a redirect is in process.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. But the point is a redirect. So basically, instead of getting back your HTML page, it says actually the data is somewhere else. So in that case, instead of the engine sending something to the spider, it's going to say, oh, I'm going to grab it, I'm going to send it back in instead. So I'm going to try to request a new page instead. So this will kind of handle those kind of redirects. Some things happen here as well. It's checking the responses coming through. Common thing we're checking at this side would be we'd be checking, on the content of the page to make sure like nothing's missing. So, for example, you might find that if they, might find that let's say if you're making like an API request, it might be that there's an issue on the API server and there's some data missing. You can actually check to see if there's if there's data you expect to have missing, and then it'll send it back to the engine to get requested again. Yeah, so as I said, for the most part, you can actually focus on just writing stuff in here. You can kind of ignore all this stuff. If you do want to do stuff here in the middlewares, chances are there's a Python package you can just download and just add that into your spider. It's all, yeah, so that's kind of the beauty of it being, a framework that you're just sitting here doing stuff here. And obviously, complex stuff that's going on to make your job easier, you don't need to really care about it. It's about happening on the hood. Any questions about this before I move on? Great. Because now we're actually going to do our demo. So for our demo, what we're doing is, here we go. So here we are looking at the UCC Express website. And our job is we want to make a spider that's going to visit all of these pages in the opinion section. And it's going to open the page into a new tab. So it's going to open the page up. And then we'll pull the title of the page, we'll pull who wrote it, we'll pull when it was posted, and some other details like that. So I'm going to start off by showing you the a template I've made, just a very basic template that's going to start us off. So here we have in my Python, this is close to so when you're using Scrapey, you can actually use a command to generate a basic spider. This is an even more basic version of that spider creates. So there's a bunch of files here, but again, a lot of this is connected to the engine. We don't really need to care about it. All we're going to be working in is in two places. Here in the UCC Express.py file, this is where our actual spider is. This is where our code's going to be to put for pulling the data from the website. And then we're also be working a little bit down here in items. So over here, and items is going to be here's where we're going to set the items that we're actually getting from the page, and there's going to be some processes that's going to act on the items that we're pulling in order to actually make the data look nice. All it's really doing here, so I've got this processes file here it's pulling from, and here it's pulling. Let me scroll over here. This default input processor, and this is just I won't show you the code because it gets a bit weird. But it's basically just code for cleaning up the strings we're getting in, removing weird characters and white space and stuff like that. So to start off, we'll hit on this page, and what we want to find is these links. So I'm going to just walk through how we get this part, and then when we're actually in the articles, I'm going to be asking you guys to help me find the various fields. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to do inspect, and when I do inspect, it's going to open up here the HTML, the Google inspect tab, and I can see that this City in the Garden heading has this link in it. So I'm going to need to make a CSS selector to actually pull that link out of it. So what I'm going to do is, in order to actually test my code to make sure I'm doing it right, I'm going to use what we call the scrapey shell. And the scrapey shell is basically a, think of it as like a normal kind of Python console, but a bunch of other code imported into it to allow you to use the same code we're going to be using in our Spider. This one as well, this will hook into the middlewares. So if you have any custom middlewares in our Spider, any rate settings in our Spider, it's going to hook into that and use that as well. So using this console, we'll get a good idea of what the Spider itself is actually going to be getting. Can anyone actually see, like, is the text here all okay? Can people see and read the text?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So first of all, I'm going to use this fetch command to actually fetch the website. So I'm going to go here, copy, okay, and paste that in. So you can see now it fetched the website. It got a 200, so I was able to successfully connect to the website. So now I want to try to figure out, I want to get these links over here, these links to the pages. And I can see that all of these links, they're in a class called entry title. There's a H1 entry title, and inside is an A with the actual link. So I'm pretty sure if I just do a selector to get this A from this H1, it'll probably just get these links I'm looking for. So to do that, I'm going to type response. So I'm going to do my links are going to be equal to response.css. So this response, this is the response we got from our engine. So it has the HTML code and some other bits and pieces to allow us to pull the data from it. So I'm going to type response.css and I'm going to put in my CSS selector. So I'm going to say I want to select from dot entry dash title DA, and then I'm going to add this little bit to the end of it. I'm going to say I want specifically from the A, I want an attribute, and the attribute I want is href. And then I'm going to close that string and close the brackets. I'm going to type dot get all to get everything that will match. Does anyone understand why I'm choosing that selector? Cool. So then I press it, and now it's gone and selected those. So I'm just going to make sure everything makes sense. I'm just going to get the length of this new linked variable I made. I can see I got 10 out of it, and I've prepared this in advance, and I've made sure there are 10 things on that page. So this 10 is correct. So I've got the 10 items I'm looking for. So now I'm going to actually put that into my Spider. So we're going to go here, and we're going to go back to our UCC Express Spider. So how the Spider works is every Spider has a name, and we use that name to actually tell the Spider to load from the terminal in a bit. Every name must be unique in every Spider. Every Spider also has this allowed domains attribute, and this tells us which domains it's allowed to go to. Just because in some cases, if you do a bad selector, you might end up selecting a page from a different website, and suddenly you're stuck crawling websites forever. So I'm going to limit this to only be able to get things from UCC Express. And as well, I put in a start URL. So this is the first. This is a list of URLs. It's going to go to first. In this case, this has one. And let me actually just make this a bit skinnier so you can see the rest. This has this opinion. So what this Scrapey framework is going to do is it's going to go through every URL in your start URLs, and it's going to feed it through this parse. It's going to request it and feed the response through this parse. This parse method here. So I'm going to say I'm basically just going to go here. I'm just going to copy all of that, and then I'm going to go here. I'm going to say, oh, this doesn't like copying from there, it seems. Okay. And yeah. So now it's going to use the same code to get all those links from before. And now I need to actually tell it to visit those pages. So I'm going to do a for loop. for linking links, I'm going to say, I'm going to use this yield keyword. Have any of you seen yields before or generators? Okay, a couple of nods, but for people who aren't nodding, don't worry about it. I'm going to type request. So this is a, so I'm going to tell it to make a request. And in the request, I'm going to put the link. And I'm going to put a callback. And this is going to tell it which method to push the response through. I'm going to say it's going to push it through this pass article method down here. So now what's going to happen is when I visit the page, it's going to go to this page, it's going to find all these links, and for every link in that list, it's going to push them through this request, which is going to be all of the articles, and then it's going to push it through this pass article method down here. So now we have our first part of the spider, we have what we would usually call the discovery portion, which is how it discovers the links. And now we have to do the consumer portion, which is how it actually consumes those links and spits out product, how it spits out items. So let's go to this one first, City in a Garden. And to remind you as well, so what we're going to be pulling from this is, I'll get over here, we want the headline, the author, the category, the related links, and the URL of the image. So I'm just going to take this, I'm going to copy that, and I'm just going to put it here and make it a comment for now, just so we know what we're grabbing. Okay, so let's start with the headline. What should I do? Good. So I'm going to yeah, there we go. So I'm going to inspect the element. Okay, and we can see then down here, this is where the title is. So now I'm also going to just copy this, and I'm going to fetch this in the shell, so we can test our code. Okay, so so we do response.css. Okay, watch by selector B.
Entry dash title.
Okay, so we'll do dot entry dash title, and we want the text from that specifically. So we're going to do this extra bit onto it and say text. I want the text from that entry. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do dot get to actually see if we get the value we want from it. And look at that, we do. So this is the correct selector. We're going to get the header from that. So I'm going to go back to my spider. So then what I've done here is I've created a loader, and the loader is going to load the fields into my item. And the processes that I've defined in the scale file up here, it's going to use those processes to actually clean the text up to make sure it looks nice. So I'm going to say loader dot add CSS. So I'm going to say I wanted to add to I wanted to add to the loader via CSS. I'm going to do it is the headline. So I'm going to say it's the headline I'm adding, and then I'm going to put in this exact thing here. So there we go. So our first part. Now we have our spiders going to be getting the headline. So now we go back up here, and now we have to get the author. So what are the steps again? Good. Inspect element. So we'll do that, and we can see that it's here. So what selector should I type in here to get that? So we want to get this express staff text here. So let's type response.css, get us started. Okay.
It'll be hash. So,
no, it's a class. So no, there won't be a hash. So we need a, yeah, exactly. We need a dot because it's going to be a class. And what am I going to put after that? I'm going to have to channel my inner deck bridge and go, what do we have to put in that? Very good. You put in the author. Okay. And then, so that's going to be selecting this span element. But you can see the author is actually in this A element inside it. Luckily, there's only one thing in the author V card. So I can help you guys out, and we'll just do A after that. So it'll be the only A inside this class. And then as before, we'll do text. And we'll do .get. There we go, express staff. So now we've got 2 bits done. Only 3 more to go. So I go back to here, and we're going to do the same thing. What is that? CSS. Oops. AUTHOR. There we go. So then we need to get the category, and the category is this bit here. Also, this bit here could also be considered the category. So which one do you think would be easiest for me to go for? Okay, we'll try the box. So I'm going to right click this, and we're going to do inspect element as before. You can see this is pretty nice. So we have this opinion here is what we're trying to get to. So I'm going to lift this back up. I'm going to type response.css. Okay, so what should I put in there first?
Can you use these square selectors? Don't like to, with CSS, you can select on certain attributes.
You mean like inside the square brackets? Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, you can do any CSS selector. You can do it. Okay.
Like rel equals category tag in square brackets.
Yep. So we'll do rel equals category tag. Okay, and that's actually going to select this specific A, and then we're going to do the text at the end of it to get the actual text from it, and then we're going to type .get. Yeah, that works. Fantastic. So we'll go and we'll throw that into our thing down here. And this is going to be category. And then we just paste this in, and there we go. So another thing we could have done there as well is we could have gone .cat links a context as well if you wanted to. As with any kind of program, there's always multiple ways to solve the problem. So our next one now is going to be related links. So these related links are going to be all the way down here. Yeah, here we go. That's these links down here. So again, I'll just start you guys off. We're going to inspect. Okay. So we want all of these links, not just some of them. We want all 3 of them. So what should I do for my selector? I can scroll up as well so you can see more of what's above it.
Just do like the class for JP related boxes.
Yep. So this one, I guess this one, yeah, do that one. Okay, so let's see if this will work. I haven't tested this part of it, so there's a chance that this will be generated by something that I'm actually getting, but let's see what happens. Okay, so we're going to be, again, .class. Okay, and then what we want is just this text. We get the text. Let's actually get the link to it, because that's probably more useful to whoever our mysterious client is. They probably want the link. So again, as in the first one, we want the specific attribute, so we do this attribute instead. And we say, I want the href, which, okay, I'm not sure. Do I click off something? Might have disconnected. I'm going to try just disconnecting the remote desktop and reconnecting again. 2 seconds. There we go. So we're back. So again, it's ATTR, and we do href. And this time we don't just want one thing, we want a lot of things. So I'm going to do .get all instead, as before, and this should get me all of those links. So I'm going to hit return, and I'm getting nothing. And that's probably because this might not actually be part of the source we're getting. So one thing we can do is we can actually do view response to see the exact response we got. Because sometimes there'll be some elements of the page that looks like it's there, but was actually added in later on by JavaScript or something that was requested externally. So I can actually view the response to see what it looks like. So here when I scroll down, we don't have the links down there. So that's what happened. I accidentally put a check in there. I'm sorry about that. But yeah, so we actually can't get this information, so we won't bother getting it then. There are ways to get it, but it can be a pain in the ass. So let me just get us back to full screen and go back to our code here. I'm actually just going to get rid of this related links. And then lastly, we're going to do loader.add CSS because we want to get the image URL. So I did things a little bit backwards here. I'm going to put this present first. So let's go back here. So again, what I'm looking for now here is just this first image up here, and just the URL for that image. So what do I do again? Exactly, I'm going to right click. Actually, this is wrong one. That's the this one wrong again. So go up here. We right click. We're going to inspect, and you can see. So that's the image tab, and you want the URL of the image, which is going to be one of these attributes. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, there you go. Just the source. Okay, good. So I wrote my prompt again. I do response.css. Okay, so how do I select this?
Not featured image.
Very good. Not featured. Oops, I have to put quotation marks on that. Featured image. Okay, and then what?
Image,
Okay, img, and we specifically want the source attribute. So let's do this to get it out. And then we do .get. And we can see we got that. Another thing we can do as well with this attribute is kind of like we can actually just leave this blank, because the only thing in this featured image is an image, so we don't actually have to specifically say we want to select this field. We can do it like this instead, and you can see we still get the same image. So I'm just going to go and copy this. Oh, wrong button. So I'm going to open up my code again, and I'm just going to paste it in here. Cool, there we go. So now we have everything we need. So let's get rid of these ugly comments. I do this because they yell at me in code review if I don't do this. So now it's built in. Okay. So yeah, so we're getting just the headline, the author, the category, and the image URL from this page. I'm just going to change one thing. So I'm going to go back here to this items. I'm going to go back to this items code, and I'm just going to get rid of the related links because I'm not getting that anymore. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about in the loader. So the loader is what I'm using over here, this UCC Express item loader. And so when I'm making this, I'm giving it a default item class, which is what I've made up here. So that means by default it's going to be using that. There might be cases we have multiple items. You want to maybe change what item it's using, but in this case we just have one, so we just have this default. Then We also put in 2 default processes to handle our code. The first one is this one that I've assigned in this tab. You can see the code on GitHub, and it's basically just cleaning the strings up, removing escape characters and white space and all that kind of stuff. And then here, I have this take first processor. The reason I have this in here is because when I use the item loader, it takes all the input in as a list of strings. And you see in all these cases, I only want one item. So this take first will take that list of strings and take the first thing out of that list. So that way I'll actually be getting single items instead of a list with one thing in it. You can also put some more advanced processes in here. So a common one I use is if, let's say, I'm scraping prices, for example. In some countries, they'll do decimal points as commas. In some countries, they'll do thousand separators as full stops or spaces, or there's loads of ways to do this. So I'll use a processor that's going to actually clean up those numbers. So any number I put in there, regardless of how they have everything arranged, it'll turn it into a normal int. So that's a common thing I'd be using a processor for. But yeah, so this is all done now and ready, and this is all ready. So now we're actually going to crawl our spider. So to do our crawl, we're going to copy the name of our spider. Okay, and then we're going to go back here to our terminal, and we're going to create out of the shell. We don't need the shell anymore. And then we're going to do our command to crawl the website. So I'm going to type scrapey crawl, and I'm going to crawl the name of the spider. And also, you want our data to be outputted somewhere. So I'm going to do .o for output, and I'm going to say I want to put this in a presentation. We'll say, and let's make it a JSON. So I'm going to do this, and you can see there's all stuff happening, and there you go, it's done. So you see it finished. Let's have a look at some of these stats. See, we got 10 items. That's good. So that means it actually worked fine. We didn't get any 4-4s, any 0-1s. So it looks like everything's good. So let's actually check, because I haven't actually run this part of the file, so I don't know. So I'll be as surprised as you guys are. So I'm going to open up my JSON here, and there you go. We have everything. So you can see we have our headline. We have the author, it's in the opinion, we have the URL, yep, we have everything we wanted. So congratulations, you've all written your first spider. Okay. So now let's go back to the talk. Oh, and also as well, this template is on GitHub. So I'll actually, after this, I'll put the link into the tech chat on Discord. If you guys want to do this at home, or maybe like make it scrape like some other sections or stuff like that, feel free to give it a go. So here you go. So now just a couple of things to keep in mind when you're scraping in future. The first one, which is very important, is be polite. When I say be polite in the context of scraping, I don't mean like asking please and thank you. I mean don't fuck up people's websites. So I mentioned before the scheduler will limit how many requests it makes at once, because if you make 1,000 requests on some poor guy's website, it could take it down. You might accidentally DDoS them. And that's a really bad thing to do, especially like 6 p.m. when it's during its peak time. So what I want to do is limit the amount of damage you're doing to someone's website, so don't like request a million things at once. And also try to aim your scraping to be done like in the middle of the night. So that way it'll have less impact on the user's website. That's a double-edged sword, because then if you do mess something up, you're waking up a sysadmin at like 4 in the morning. So, but they get paid a lot of money, so it's fine. The next one is to think about this copyright, because a lot of time what you're scraping could be copyrighted data. So for example, in what we just did there, of the headline of an article is copyrighted. The content of the article is copyrighted. And there might be issues with you scraping this data, because what you're doing is you're taking this data and you're sharing it to someone else usually, and you might not be allowed to do that. So I'm not a lawyer, so I can't actually tell you do's and don'ts here. The best thing to do is, if you're suspicious, just don't do it and ask a real lawyer. Next one to think about is personal data. This is a very important one, especially because we're all in Europe, which means GDPR all applies. GDPR is the EU data protection law, and it applies if you are a European entity, or if you're scraping data from a European entity. And because we're all European, we're in the first group. What personal data means is, I have written it down here, it is any information concerning or relating to a living person who's identified or identifiable. So that would mean, for example, someone's name will identify them, so that's personal data. Someone's phone number can kind of maybe identify them in certain contexts. If you look it up somewhere, like a UCC student ID isn't identifiable on its own, but if you have like a page that's like, person's name ID, name ID, name ID, then it becomes identifiable. It's really, really complex law, because a lot of it is just kind of like, recommending you use your common sense. So it's all very vague. So if you are going to be scraping stuff that you think is personal data, your first step is to just not do it if you're suspicious, and your second step is to talk to a real lawyer, not me. You also have to worry about the terms of use of websites, because these might limit what you can do on the website. So on some websites, like for example on Facebook, to view a lot of data on Facebook, you have to log in. And once you've logged in, you have to accept the terms of use. And some of those terms of use might actually prevent you from taking data from the website. So you want to be, so if you are breaking terms of use, you might get banned from the website. Another thing actually that is just a combination of copyright and terms of use is there's a legal case going on at the moment with LinkedIn. They're suing a web scraping company, not my company, a different company. They're trying to say that if you have a LinkedIn profile and you set your data to public, LinkedIn is trying to say that they own that data and people are allowed to scrape that data. The latest update of this court case is a judge ruled against LinkedIn, saying that if someone wants data to be public, that's their choice and it is public now. And they went so far as to say that LinkedIn stopping people from scraping this data would be illegal, which means that stopping web scraping could become illegal based off of that. So it's all very complex and weird. So a lot of with the recent kind of different data breaches and the Cambridge Analytica stuff, there's a lot more concern about personal data, who can get and what they can do with it. So a lot of the legal issues here are ongoing. So if you're going to be web scraping and you're kind of suspicious, don't do it and talk to a real lawyer. And then I'm going to talk about some advanced scraping techniques. So we made a spider for UCC Express, and while it was great and you should be proud of yourselves, it's a pretty easy website to scrape. Some advanced things you might come up with is, first of all, will be cookie management. On some websites, they force you to accept cookies to do anything on the website, especially if you log into a website and it comes back with a cookie that says you're logged in, they'll allow you to access different things. And cookies can also be used to identify suspicious behavior. So sometimes you might have to be doing stuff with cookies. This is usually done in more of the middlewares. You can have it so it'll select collections of cookies, so it looks like instead of one person visiting 1,000 pages, it's 1,000 people visiting 1,000 pages and stuff like that. So for more complex websites, you're going to have messing with cookies. Another thing can be APIs in JavaScript. So as you saw, we couldn't get the related links because what happens there is not part of the original request. There's a secondary request that comes after that. So on some websites, you have to, instead of requesting the HTML pages, you have to actually go either find the JavaScript and decode the JavaScript to find some data in there, which can be a pain in the ass because JavaScript is usually puts you minimizes. So all the variable names are like A, B, and C, and it makes no sense. And APIs as well, those can be good or bad, because in some cases, if an API is really well designed, instead of having to go through a HTML page, you can make a very specific request and you get back just a JSON file and everything's in there for you. It can be a bit more complex where they get something back and then they want some JavaScript on it to make the text seem make a bit more sense. I've spent the last 2 weeks trying to make sense of an API. So when they're bad, they're very bad. Another thing is multiple page formats. So for example, let's say on UC Express, maybe they want their sports articles to be different from their opinion articles, which means you can't actually rely on the same code. You have to make multiple methods to pass through multiple types of pages. Another thing that can come up in this is A/B testing. And what this means is, if let's say a website is considering changing their UI, they'll send some users UI A and some users UI B. And what this means is you look at the website, you see one website, you're using your shell sees one website, you want your spider, it gets website B, and nothing works, and you've got no idea why it's not working. So that can be a pain in the ass when it happens. And lastly, bad HTML. Basically, people who didn't take their bridges classes or advice seriously. If you go to the HTML5 validator and you put in like any Amazon page, you'll get about 200 errors. So sometimes the HTML can just be bad, and it can be difficult to make a nice looking selector that will actually select the data you want, especially if that combines with multiple page formats, when you might need like dozens of selectors to get everything. I'm going to talk a little bit about anti-bots. So anti-bots, that would be techniques people use to identify automation on the websites and stop it. Usually, this is not done to stop web scraping. It's just via collateral damage. Usually, it's done to stop spammers or to stop DDoS or to stop this general malicious activity. It just so happens that we look a lot like that, so you might get banned by these, and there's some techniques you can use to get around it. So but mainly I'm talking about like what websites will do to someone who they think is a who they think is a bot. The first one is IP blocking. So IP blocking can be proactive or reactive. In the case of proactive, they're going to block ranges of IPs that will belong to like a lot of cloud services. So for example, if someone connects from a Google cloud service IP, they just won't let them connect because there's no way human will be using that because that's a cloud server somewhere. No one's connecting from that. So that's a good idea that it's probably a bot. In terms of reactive, that would be if they detect suspicious or malicious behavior from your IP, they will block you, but they won't block you. They usually won't block you permanently. They'll block you temporarily. And the reason they do that is because these days most IPs are dynamic. So while I could be scraping an IP one day, next week Ali could be on an ID, or someone else could be on an ID and on an IP, and it's not fair for them to be blocked too. So it's going to cycle. So when IP gets blocked, it won't get blocked forever. And this is a technique we use sometimes to get around anti-bots, where if we detect an IP if we're using a proxy to hide our IP, and we detect it's being blocked, we'll just put it away over here somewhere. And we use other IPs, and later on we'll check that IP again. So it allows us to cycle through IPs instead of actually losing the IP forever. Another one is header validation. So they're actually going to check the content of the headers and the ordering of the headers to figure out if something automated is happening. So a common thing they're going to check in the header is the user agent, and that's telling them like what operating system and browser is using this. If let's say I don't set it up properly and they say, okay, the person's business website is apparently not using a browser, then that's suspicious and they're going to block you for botting. Another thing they look at, which is interesting, is the content and the ordering of your headers. So for example, I'll bring this up here. Here are two headers that I got while visiting my company's website. The top one is Firefox and the bottom one is Chrome. And some things you'll see here is, for example, here in Chrome, the connection is the second one, but up here, it's the second last one. So if let's say I'm using a user agent, I'm saying, oh, I'm Chrome, and my Chrome pattern does not match that pattern, then they'll know I'm lying and the normal bot is probably going to block me. So as part of your downloaded middlewares, you'll probably have things that are going to reorganize your headers to make them actually match the browser you're pretending to be. Another thing they look at, which is kind of interesting, is TCP and IP fingerprinting. So what's interesting about this is there's two fields in your TCPs and IP headers. TTL, which is the time to life, which is how long it's going to take for the for routers to stop sending your request on, and window scaling, which is a TCP header that tells you how big a window the data you want that back. What's interesting is both of these are set by the operating system. So you can actually tell what operating system someone's using based off of these. So again, if I'm saying, hey, I am Auntie Betty, I'm using Chrome from my Windows computer, and then look at my TTL and window scaling, and they say, oh, this matches the settings for Linux, then they'll know I'm lying, and they're probably going to block me. So lastly, I'm just going to use the last few minutes to talk a bit about Scraping Hub. So Scraping Hub is the company I work for. So it was founded in 2010. And it was actually founded by a UCC graduate, UCC CS graduate. Shane Evans is his name. He actually worked on the first version of the Scraping package as well. So all of you CS students who are going to be graduating soon, you could be like 12 years away from being a CEO of a company. That's pretty cool. So yeah, we are the maintainers of the Scraping package. The HQ is in Cork, but we are a fully remote company. What that means is the HQ is basically just a plaque on a door somewhere. We don't actually have offices. Everyone works from home. That includes everyone from me as a developer, our QA guys, our finance people, our HR people, the whole company, all working from home. So it's fully remote. We have 200 employees, and they're worldwide. I think about 10%-ish are in Ireland, and everyone else is all over the world. In terms of some of the products we offer, so you might be wondering, based off what I showed you, and web scraping isn't really that difficult. Why would you contract a company like Scraping Hub to do web scraping, in addition to just getting someone like me who knows what to do. We have these additional projects. The Scraping Hub Dash is like a cloud server that you can run your Spider on. So instead of having it run in your terminal, you can actually have it run on the website, and when it finishes, the items are going to be arranged in a way that's a lot more user-friendly to look at. We also have Splashy. Splashy is what's called a headless browser. So instead of it getting just the HTML request, it's actually going to be like a fake browser that's going to actually do the additional requests. And this allows you, if there's like JavaScript stuff going on, you can actually use this to get the additional requests and get a more full version of their page before you start scraping it. Crawlera is one of our really cool things. It's basically a framework for anti-botting. So all the stuff I talked about in the last slide, Crawlera fixes that for you. What's really cool about Crawlera as well is because we've got a ton of people using it, if let's say I'm using Crawlera and IP gets banned from me, that means everyone else using Crawlera will know that IP is banned, they won't use it anymore. So that allows, because it's operating at scale, it's very easy to detect when something has been blocked, and the whole user base, the impact of that becomes minimal. And lastly, we have auto extract. A tongue-in-cheek way to describe auto extract is it makes everything we just did kind of redundant. It uses machine learning to do web scraping instead. It uses, like, what it does is it looks at the images of the pages, and from there it can figure out, okay, that's a header because, you know, it's up here and it's big, and, you know, this is a price because it's over here and has the symbol next to it. So it is, while, you know, I did say it kind of makes everything be just redundant, it's good for like getting basic info, but for a lot of pages, it won't get everything. And as well, in some cases, there can be data you want that actually isn't in the image. So, for example, in a lot of online stores, there'll be what's called an SKU, which is like the ID of the product. That won't be visible anywhere on the page. It'll be just in the HTML code. So you still need a developer to grab that. So auto extract can help you scraping really simple pages, but for anything a bit more complex, you're going to want to have an actual human being doing it. And that's everything. Any questions?
Can you use XPath instead of CSS?
Yes. Anything else?
What's the coolest page you've scraped?
The coolest page I've scraped. I only remember the bad pages I've scraped. Yeah, like I had to scrape once. It was like a Japanese vape website, and like every page was completely different, and like about 80% of the content was images. So what text I could scrape made no sense. Yeah, I don't really get to scrape much cool things. Although the company has done some cool stuff. They're involved in a project a few years back where they were there was some government contract to look into human trafficking. And they scraped the dark web using machine learning to identify profiles of people who are selling people. That was really cool. Yeah, I haven't been involved in anything cool like that yet, but hopefully soon.
Do you get angry emails?
No. Well, sometimes the clients can get angry because things are broken, but like in terms of like, you know, people complaining to Scraping Hub, there's like there's people like LinkedIn who don't like getting scraped. I think a lot of that stuff I wouldn't really get to see anyway. If it's happening, it's probably going to someone a bit above my pay grade.
What's the QR code? What's the QR code?
Oh, the QR code. This is my blog.
Has the EU come a knocking yet? Has the EU come a knocking?
No, actually. So our main legal counsel, she's like probably like one of the world's leading experts on scraping GDPR at this stage. So we had a talk a few weeks up in Dublin, like a conference, a web scraping conference, and she gave a really big talk about GDPR, and some of the stuff from her talk I actually stole for this, but I'm not sure if that talk's being made public. I'll keep an eye out for it, but yeah, I think for the most part, because we have her on board, we're quite good at avoiding personal data.
On the previous slide there, some facts the splashy.
Yeah.
How does that work?
So I don't know the full technical details of it, but basically, have you ever heard of something called Selenium?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's quite similar to Selenium. What it'll do is it will take the request for you and it will load it. We have like it usually works off like a Docker image, and it'll take the page and load the page and it'll wait a certain amount of time, and when it feels like it's loaded properly, then it sends the source.
So it's like a headless browser.
Exactly, yeah. Anything else?
So scrape the. I know there's also beautiful soup. Is that like the enemy or something else?
I don't think so. So the thing with Beautiful Soup is, so Beautiful Soup can it's good for scraping like specific pages, but doesn't have the engine, yeah. And that's kind of the main thing that Scrape You Off is just the engine, so you can scrape a lot of pages. Beautiful Soup is fine. You want to scrape like 1 or 2 pages. So like the example I gave when I was scraping ODB in Blizzard, Beautiful Soup would have been fine for that. But for something like if I wanted to scrape something more complex, I'd be using Scrape instead. Cool. Anything else? Okay, then I guess we'll call it. Thanks everyone for your time. I hope you learned stuff.